All right. So I'm at the age where I'm trying things that scare the daylights out of me, so here I am. They've done studies. They know that people would rather die than speak in public. So, yep. I've been turning for going on 5 years. It'll be, yeah. I started teaching at the Campbell Center in 2022, teaching people how to turn pens. So I had been turning. Papa. Yeah, okay. Now can you hear me again? Still can? Yes or no? I heard both. Okay. Yeah, that is better. So that lets me know that I've been turning for 3.5 years. Don't remember how long I've been in the club. First I started with carbide, and I learned that, well, back then it would take me 3 days to finish a pen because all my cuts were finishing cuts. I had no idea what the heck I was doing. Now I'm down to where I can do one in an hour. And I want to give thanks to Dick Flynn, who's not here tonight, for getting me started on the oval skew. We were turning pens at a Boy Scout event, and he couldn't take it anymore, I guess. I was working on my lathe, and I was using my carbide, and he came over. My memory says he handed me this thing, turned up my speed, and walked away. Now, I doubt very much that he really did that. He must have shown me something, but I dove in, and I love these things, at least for pen turning. They're great. I'm happy turning small things because I've got pretty bad arthritis in my hands. We've got a Powermatic lathe like this one at the Campbell Center where I teach, and I can't manage that thing. I have to have somebody else come and move the tailstock and such. At this point, I did check. I've taught almost 100 students, at the Campbell Center, and including the people that I invite over to my house. And it's just been a blast every single time. My favorite is when you get done with the finish and they shut it off and they see their pen for the first time and they go, oh, wow. They just love it, yep. So part of what I'm going to tell you tonight is things that you don't need for turning pens, at least in my opinion, my humble opinion. And what I'm going to present is what I figured out so far, and here we go. The first thing to think about when you're going to make a pen is choosing your wood. I've got 2 pieces of spalted wood here, and I've learned that when I have a piece that I want the grain to show in, to look on the ends of the blank. I'm just going to pass this around. One is a great blank, and the other one is a not so good blank, because if you look at it carefully, you'll see that when you turn it down, what you're going to wind up with is a very plain piece of wood, even though it looks pretty on the outside. And then I want to talk, woods come in various hardnesses, and if you're starting out making a pen, I recommend getting a wood that is not too hard and not too soft. A lot of you already know that soft can fall apart on you and hard can dull your tools quickly. Take more time to turn. I was trying to cut something with my skew out of Macassar ebony, and I was having a bugger of a time with it, and Dick Worthy told me use scrapers, and I thought, oh, I got to go down a peg and use scrapers again? But actually I've learned over time that carbide can be just as useful in the right application as regular tools. Choosing a kit. Kits come with tubes in them. I'll pass this around for anybody that hasn't seen a kit. It comes with your 2 tubes that you're going to glue into your wood and all the pieces that you need to make your pen. Be aware that different kits come with different lengths of tubes. The 2 tubes that are taped together came from different kits, and you can find out the hard way that things aren't going to fit if you're not mindful of that. You can find instructions for making your kits online. I taught with the instructions from Woodcraft for a long time because Woodcraft was in town. I'd teach the first class, send everybody to Woodcraft. They could buy a different kind of a pen than a 7mm. And by the way, that's what I'm focusing on tonight, is a very straightforward two-piece slimline pen. And the instructions, we worked with the instructions from Woodcraft. Well, we can't do that anymore, and I just, for curiosity, went to PSI and looked up their instructions. I really don't need to do a demo. They're very thorough and good. But I thought I'd pass those around so you can look. When you go online to look at the kits that you ordered, somewhere on that page, usually on the right-hand side down below the picture, it says product instructions, and you can open that up, and I suggest printing it out because you're going to want to refer to it several times when you're assembling your pen. Be aware that bushings are specific to the pen kit. All 7mm slimline pens use the same set of bushings, which is handy. But if you buy a different kind of a pen kit, you're going to need to get the bushings that go with it. And different pen kits use different diameter drill bits. So that's one thing you want to research when you're ordering to see if you have that drill bit or if you need to order that. Okay, so now we're moving on to preparing the blank. What can you see of what I'm doing? I'm probably going to do things here on the lathe bed for a little bit. Okay. All right. So in general, it's best to start with a 3/4 inch blank, about 5 inches long. You can turn things down to a 1/2 inch if you're careful with your drilling. They work if you're looking for a slimmer pen. The way I start out is by laying the tube thank you. Okay. I lay the tube on the pen blank, and I try to get about 1/8 of an inch longer than the tube itself. Some of the directions say to leave more wood, but more wood leaves you with more sanding later. Okay, so you've got your two marks. Take it over to whatever kind of saw you're using. I use my bandsaw with the miter. Keeps it nice at 90 degrees. When you make your blank, you want to make sure that you trim your ends to 90 degrees. The 90 degrees comes important when you're assembling your pen later. Okay, so I put it on the bandsaw. I saw my two pieces. And you can decide if you want to keep this one or not. I usually keep these ends. I throw them in a bag. I've got all different kinds of exotic wood, and we'll see what I do with them someday. So now I've got my two pieces of wood. And I didn't need to mark for top or bottom. And I didn't need to make any marks on the blanks that would show me where the grain pattern lies, okay? If you're making a pen that's heavily grained and you want the grain to flow on your pen, you want to make these marks and keep them there until you got it mounted on your mandrel. And sometimes I'll make marks on the end to let me know too, because pretty soon I'm going to turn that away. So I'll color code them or something, so that if I happen to take them off the mandrel, there's no question. Okay. The next thing you need to do, there are different ways of drilling. Let's see here. Okay. There are different ways of drilling. I started out drilling on my drill press, which worked fine, sort of. I had a lot more trouble with the drill wandering in the wood and it coming out uneven. You can also drill on the lathe, and I'm going to show you how I like to do that. I'm also going to show you things that you don't need to buy if I didn't say that already. And this is one you really don't need to buy. You can get this at Woodcraft. And this helps you mark for center. Can everybody see? There we go. Mark for center so you know where you're going to drill. If you're going to drill on the drill press, you want to do this. If you're going to drill on the lathe, I find it completely unnecessary. Okay. I also will do it this way. without using that very expensive, completely unnecessary gadget that looks so cool when you don't know you don't need it. About $8, I think, maybe 10, yeah. And I've still got a nice X in the middle that I can point my drill into. Okay. Okay, so drilling on your drill press, you're going to need some kind of a vise to hold your blank in place. You can see this all right. It's got 2 notches on it that hold your blank upright. And I recommend clamping this down. Some people don't. They like to live dangerously. It helps to keep it nice and steady. Your X, you can bring your brad point down so the brad point, oh, does everybody know what a brad point is? Okay. Bring it down so the point goes right into the X, and then I lock the platform on the drill press, because when you lock it, it tends to shift a little bit, and your hole's going to be a little off center. You can see that, I don't know if you can see that I've written keep on this thing. This is a perfectly drilled blank with which I push the drill down into it, and then I clamp my vise on so that nothing shifts on me when I'm getting ready to drill. Not everybody has one of these. You don't need to go out and buy one. I would suggest just taking 2 pieces of wood, put some notches in them, and set them inside of your other kind of a vise to hold your blank while you're drilling. And you can also, if you have a round blank, you can that you turn for whatever reason and it's round, you can also still drill with this, which is nice. Okay. Drilling on the drill press, I do tend to put a backing block below it to prevent tear out. For some reason, I used to have a lot of tear out in the bottom when I was drilling on the drill press, so it's less likely to push out the fibers of the wood. You'll get a nice clean hole on the other end. Okay. Drilling on the vise, I don't seem to need to do that. Drilling on here, I don't seem to need to do that. Okay, so when you're drilling on the lathe, the range, the speed at which you should drill is anywhere from 250 to 350, depending on how big what you're drilling is. My lathe, the lowest I can go at a setting that I can use for other things is 400. On something so small, I do drill at 400. Yes?
Hey, on your instructions here, the PSI.
Those are PSI's instructions.
Which do you prefer?
The PSI is much more thorough. And frankly, buying for woodcraft is much more expensive. So.
Just last week I called woodcraft.
Uh-huh.
And it worked out pretty good. I didn't know about PSI.
Yeah, yeah.
Who is PSI?
Penn State Industries on the East Coast. Yeah. They have a nice New York accent when you call them. We get 10% off, yep. Yeah. If you use the email that you're signed up for the club with, and when you place your order, you'll get the discount. Okay, so Jacob's chuck, everybody knows Jacob's chuck? Okay, I didn't show you this. I have special pin vices, jaws on this chuck. This is a cheap chuck that I actually bought from JJ, and it's my dedicated drilling vise. Okay, slow down, Larae. It's at my dedicated set so that I don't have to be screwing on the jaws. It's in my drilling supplies, and that's what I use. Okay. Where was I? You need to be careful when you're mounting in your jaws if you're not putting in a square blank. If you put in a rectangular blank, pay attention. You don't have to look when you're putting in a square one, but it could be off a little bit, and they also tend to loosen while you're drilling, so it's good to stop halfway through and tighten it up a little bit. When you're getting ready to drill and you bring your brad point up, don't shove it into the wood, put it near the wood, and then advance slowly into the wood. I have found that if I put it on the wood, this is kind of wobbly, and if you put it on the wood and then start to rotate, you're going to get a circle there instead of a clean entry hole. Just sending around a blank that the hole did not go through straight. And if you look on the entry end, you can, well, it's not that bad. You can see that, go ahead, that the hole can get kind of big. When the hole, you can see that the exit hole is not straight. For some reason, that one decided to wobble. I wish I had better bad examples. I tried to make some, and they didn't come out all that well, so. Yeah. Yeah, next time, for sure. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and drill this thing. Just yak while I do it. I have power, yes. Okay, it's turning at 420 or so, and that's just fine. Slowly, folks. Very slowly. Especially on entry. And I'm watching the chips come out, and I'm listening to the sound. Because as the sound goes higher, those chips are compacting in there, and they're starting to not flow out so easily. And I have pushed it to the point where I wound up having to trash the blank in order to get it off my drill because it got so compacted. And I've got this little brush because I have learned and you can pick at it, I've learned over time these get hot when you're doing production turning. Now I'm going to re-enter. Do not re-enter with it spinning. You'll wind up with a very large hole. I re-entered this way, and I've learned that if I re-enter with it spinning, I can get all the way down to the bottom. Well, I was close. And here we go again. If you push too fast, you're probably going to split your wood when you get to the other end. What was that? No, never tried that. Now you notice I pulled it out with it spinning. I learned the hard way. If you try to pull it out with it not spinning, it's harder to do, and sometimes your blank comes out with it. And if that ever happens, it's best to remount the blank on the drill, then put it back in the chuck. Otherwise, you're going to be off, and your hole's going to be very bad on the other end. So again, wiggle, wiggle, get in there, be nice. Okay. We'll advance it with it turning. Go. And we're almost through. All right, and I could tell by the way it eased in there that it was through. But in case you're not sure, another nice advantage of having one of these is I can see that it went through. I can feel it. And if you're going to use a little brush, put a little piece of tape so the thing doesn't roll off and get lost. That's handy. Little tip. Nobody thought of that, did they? Okay. All right. Rather than, do not drill from the other end. If your hole does not go all the way through and you've taken it out already, don't try to turn it around. It just doesn't work, okay? Do what I said, put it back on the drill, remount it. Okay, and I thought about people that may want to do the demo, but you don't have, well, you need a mandrel. Oh, never mind. So now we're going to move on to prepping the tubes for gluing them into the blanks. Thank you so much. That thing cost a lot of money. I had to get one that I could tighten down with a spanner wrench because I don't have the strength to do it with the regular ones anymore. Any chance you can see here? Awesome, 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 awesome. All right. So for gluing and prepping your tubes, there we go. You take your tubes. No, let me get this off of here first. Any thoughts, any questions? How am I doing? Anybody? Yeah? The jaws themselves? These probably came from Amazon, but most places will sell dedicated pen jaws that you can use on your chuck. You just, be careful that you, Yeah, I bet, yeah. Connect her with me. His wife turns pens. That would be cool.
One tip that I do when making pens,
Uh-huh.
if, like when you're doing acrylic in there after the blowout,
Uh-huh.
I make sure that the piece is much longer. I don't drill all
Yes.
through,
Very good.
cut it.
Very, very good. Yeah, that's true. I didn't think to mention that, but you're right. Yeah. Did I lose lights? Oh, okay. I'll deal with it. You guys can see well enough that you're not too worried about that? Okay, good. Okay. So before you glue your blanks, your tubes into your wood blanks, you need to prepare the tubes. And one of the things you need to do is scratch up the surface of the tube because the epoxy won't stick as well to a slick surface. You can do it by hand, and it's good to do it in all different directions. The other thing you can do when you're doing production turning, like I do sometimes, is slip them on here, bring your mandrel saver down, and turn on your lathe, and zip, you got a whole bunch of them done. But I do make my students suffer. I make them scratch by hand, because it's part of the ropes of learning. Okay. Already sanded, yes, I know. Isn't that a luxury? Yeah. You can pay more for the kit. You can sand it yourself, or you can pay more for the kit. Take your choice. If they have to sand them, they're going to charge you for it. No, I have 80 grit sandpaper. Thanks for asking. Yep. Let's give them a good scratching up. Now, the next thing you want to do is cut some cookies. You want to plug the ends, oh, come on, of your tubes so that you don't get any glue in there because you're going to press fit the pieces. I have Sculpey, just some dry Sculpey. You can also use wax. They will sell you a nice expensive sheet of wax that you can use. This was about $11 on Amazon. Comes in a big packet. And you can, if you want to, you can use a potato. You know, just slice a slice of potato, pat it dry, and it works just fine. It stays in there. Yep. Okay. Sculpey, yeah. Don't use the oil-based ones, though, because they are very soft, and when you try to get it out of there, they don't come out nicely. They're a nuisance. Okay, wax paper. Yeah.
The wax pads, for $7.95, you get three and a half, 3 inch by 5 inch sheets.
Yeah. I'd rather spend my $7.95 on potatoes that I can eat. Alrighty. I hate these things. Does anybody else hate these things? One side clogs, starts to harden up on you, and then you can't use anything, you throw it away. Everybody's used epoxy before? Anybody don't know? I do not like super glue. I worked with the kids at the high school, at Churchill High School, with Steve Woods one summer, and they were using super glue. Yes, it's fast, and yes, they had more blowouts than I've ever seen. It just doesn't hold as well, and over time, super glue doesn't hold up. It falls apart. 5 minute if I'm only doing, maybe up to 10 pens, blanks. But if I'm doing production turning, I'll use a 30 or a 40 so that I can get through them all without having to make lots of batches. I've even used knife epoxy, which takes overnight to cure and sets up in about 40, 50 minutes. So that's cool. Popsicle sticks. Popsicle sticks are your friend when you're gluing up. Gloves are your friend. Rubbing alcohol does take epoxy off your fingers, but not very well.
Acetone works pretty good.
Yeah, I bet. It really does a number on your skin, too.
Dries you out pretty good.
Uh-huh. Yep. All right. Hope I have enough glue here. Probably not. Usually I would do way too much. I actually keep spare blanks sitting around so that I can use that way too much glue without wasting it. Okay. So you saw me just roll that in there? You can't see me, right? Yeah. And they say when you put it in to twist it, I don't find it necessary. I push it in, a glob accumulates around the edge, I push it down further, I scrape it off, and then I take the tip of the toothpick, popsicle stick, and push it in just that little bit more. It gives you just enough wood left over to sand when you want to square your ends. So I like that. I'll do one more because it's here. And I generally go in the end that I prefer for various reasons. One would be if you're tracking your grain, you're going to want to enter from the middle. So make sure your piece, the arrows that I drew earlier, making sure you put the tube in on the arrow ends, because you're going to have more left on the non-glued end to sand off than you are in the middle. All right, let me check. Okay, there was a reason I was going to drill a second blank long. If your blank is a little too long, you're going to have a lot of excess material on this end, and it's going to take you forever to sand that. You can go over to your bandsaw and saw it off that way, and I've trashed many bandsaw blades doing that. I finally got myself a little used Proxxon table saw that I got for $100, and I love that thing. I can set it just perfectly, and zip, it comes off clean, and if I happen to hit the brass, no big deal. So. Okay. So for squaring the blank ends, I'm just going to leave those guys. We don't need to tend to them at the moment. This is another thing that I don't think you really need. This is a, where do you want me? You can follow me, okay. This is a barrel trimmer. Thumbs are getting old, guys. There we go. So barrel trimmer comes with various size shafts for the various size tubes that you're going to be working with. Give me a drilled one, please. This inserts into your glued-in tube. You have this on your hand drill, and it trims down the wood to the edge of the brass. They're very hard to control. You can't see what you're doing. You don't really know when to stop. I prefer sanding on my disc sander at home. I brought my little come here, you. Brought my little sander here. Also purchased from PSI. It's very cute. It has no power. I use it when I am really trying to fine-tune the end of a blank that I've made that may not have been perfectly 90 degrees. Mostly at home, I will trim my blanks on my belt sander with it that has a disc on it. And I use my miter and this little gadget. Okay? I can hold this like this. Of course, it's on the table, and the blank is on here, and I slowly advance against the wheel and sand my ends. It's important to rotate your blank. Don't press too hard, you don't want to burn it. And you can just pick this up and have a look at your progress, which is kind of neat. This has the same kind of a unit on it. Okay. And it's nice that it fits in the slot and it doesn't move around so much. Same idea. Only this one you have to pull it all the way out here. Push it in. Your blanks are going to have glue on the end. I like to take off the glue in the middle of the disc where it's turning most slowly so that I don't waste the outer portion that I like to use when I'm turning down just the wood. I'll just go ahead and demonstrate this. So this is glue, epoxy. Turn you on. Never used it sideways before. Peak.
What grit is that?
This is a 120. Turned out I didn't have any more 80s. So I had to put that on there. The trouble with 80 is you create more of a burr around the edges of your tube. But I do have a remedy for that. I'm trying to get down to where you can see what the goal is. And there we go. Let's see if I can get this the right way. I'm just about to tell you, I'm trying to get it on the screen, but it just is, I can't orient myself to know which way to turn this thing. There we go, there we go. Can you see that bright brass ring there? That's how you know when you've gone far enough. And you just have to keep peeking. And this is the other end. Be mindful of how soft your wood is. The harder ones are going to take longer. The softer ones, you might be done before you know it. As far as creating a burr on the inside, this is one thing that I invested in that I think is well worth it. I love this little deburring tool. You put it in the tube, and you just swirl it around both directions, and it takes all those little bits of brass that have been pushed in the middle by the sandpaper and smooths it back out again. So that's pretty handy. I didn't mention checking for 90. You will be surprised at the small amount of having it off, how much of a difference that can make when your pen is put together. PSI also sells, for anybody who really gets into this, adapters that fit on the ends of these gadgets that will fit inside a larger diameter tube. Okay? And that's very handy. One thing I really like to use this for is when I've created a pen, I'm done with it, I go to put it together, and oh Lord, there's a little gap on one side, and I don't want that little gap to show between my fittings and the wood. So I can put it back on here and just gently take a little pass, straighten it out, and I know I can trust it. Works really well. Another investment that I think was worthy. All right, take a little mind break here. Yep. Okay, so we're up to mounting our pen blanks on the mandrel. Oh, gluing, I forgot to mention. Yeah, you wait your 5 minutes, go take a break or something, come back, pop out your little cookies. And these came out nice and clean. I made this little reamer that it's got threads on the end, it's out of a bolt. One day I was doing something on the mandrel which had threads on the end, and I noticed, gee, it's cleaning out the glue and everything that's stuck in there. So I went down to the hardware store, turned a little handle, and made this little tool, which I use every single time. Just push it in and out, clean it off with a brass brush when it gets gucky. It's very good. This is something else I don't think you need. Ralph says he likes it. This I should have shown you before when I was putting the tubes into the blank. It holds different sizes of tubes. You slip your tube on there, and it keeps your fingers out of the glue. But I find my fingers get full of glue anyway. So, not really worth it in my book. So anyway, let me push these out. You tracking me here, Garrett? All right. I hoped that would happen. Who got hit? Potato spud gun. Yep. We should have had the barrier up. See that? Good. So, when we get to the end of this, the challenge is going to be a pen, and it's going to be in 2 months because of the picnic. We have mandrels to loan, and I have inexpensive pen kits that I'll just sell you for $3 a piece if anybody wants to do the challenge and doesn't have the supplies or doesn't want to go through PSI. So, all right. Different kinds of mandrels. There's this kind of mandrel that I have mounted in here that does not have threads on the end. For that, you must use what they call a mandrel saver. It's got bearings in it. The end of it slides over the mandrel and pushes on your bushings, which we'll talk about in a minute. They also have this kind, which has a brass nut on the end. It's adjustable in length, which is nice because the longer your mandrel, the more likely you're going to wind up without a round. It can bend. There's all kinds of complications. It's adjustable with a 22 millimeter wrench, 2 of them, that is. You don't want a reef on that, by the way. If you do get this kind of a mandrel, you don't need to. It just needs to be good and snug. It's a bugger to get them to come apart when they're too tight, and it's unnecessary. There's a collet in there that will actually damage your rod. Okay, come out. When you use this kind of a mandrel, you'll need a live center in your tailstock. The live center, there's a little indentation there. It sits in there. It's going to ruin your live center in the long run. So if you could use this, you'll want a dedicated old one that just sits there and holds it. The bushings push on your blank, and it's the pressure of the bushings on the tube and the blank that makes it snug so it doesn't just spin when you're trying to cut, okay? If you tighten this too tightly, or you tighten this too tightly, your bushings are going to push into the wood and force it back from the edge of the brass tube. And if you use your imagination, when you trim that down to the level of the bushing, you're going to have brass sticking out, which will make a gap in between the parts of your pen. Unsightly gap. And everybody will say, nice pen, but they will see that too. Okay, where was I? So it's important to get it tight, but not too tight.
Favorite mandrel for production?
This one, this type, because it's on and off. I'm not messing with that knurl. Sometimes it's hard to get it tight enough. There are different kinds of mandrel savers out there. Axminster sells a very expensive mandrel saver that's supposed to be much more accurate. It only fits Axminster mandrels. There's like not even a tenth of an inch difference. You shove it on there and it's going to jam and you're never going to get it apart. This came off. This will not come off. The most accurate way to turn is between centers. This goes in your headstock, this goes in your tailstock, and your blank slips right over these points. And there's room on there for your bushings, most bushings. Some bushings for certain kits are very big, but that is the most accurate thing. And you can only, one of the drawbacks is you can only turn one piece at a time, and I like to have two pieces on my mandrel so I can see the overall shaping of the pen that I'm making. So when I'm making a really nice pen, I'll use these. All right, let's get this thing on here. I have to turn something so I can show you how to put them together. Any questions so far other than the ones you've spoken? No? These out of the way.
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, please.
When you're trimming the barrels, I used to have a high-speed steel barrel trimmer, which worked fine in my hand drill.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got the carbide-tipped one, and I started splitting the whole blank.
Oh, really?
Because when that carbide bit into it, it caused
Took so much.
the torque sideways, bit into the wood sideways, and
Gotcha.
split the whole pen blank.
Yike.
So I switched to using the carbide-tipped one in my drill press.
Oh, yes. Yes.
It takes a little bit longer to
Set it up
get
and
it
all,
lined
but
up.
yeah. But it's
I
worth
haven't
it.
had any more problems splitting blanks anymore.
Very good, yeah. Okay. I don't normally rough these with a roughing gouge and take the corners off. Oh, if you're working with very soft wood, feel free to take your mandrel over to your belt sander and just round off the edges. A good wood to do that with is spalted wood, cedar, Douglas fir bark. Okay, off we go. Hopefully this is fast enough. I'm not going to take time to change belts. It's about 16. Okay. Does anybody need help on approaching the blank with your tool? You okay with that? Good. I've given these to students, I start off with this, and I'll turn around and they've got their pen nearly down to the size of the bushings. I didn't say before that the bushings, not only do they hold your wood in place, can you hear me if I don't speak loudly? I can't hear myself. You hear me all right? Okay, good. They hold the wood in place, but they're also the diameter that you want to bring your blank down to fit the shape of the kit. On slimline pens, the bushings are all the same size. But if you get, say, an English pen kit, you're going to have 3 different size bushings. And you need to make a tenon, but that's a story for another day. Come on, go. And I'm just going to make any old pen. Long about now, I start tapering down toward my bushings. It's better to do it with your tools, if you can get away with it, than to do it sanding, because sanding takes longer. And most people don't like sanding. I don't mind it too much. How many of you have already made a pen? Okay. Maybe I am serving some good after all. Oops, got my bushing. I should have bought a headlamp. I usually work under much better light. And I also work with reading glasses on. I'm just going to finish this with the roughing gouge. I'm not going to bother with the skews. It's going to be rough. I know you all love doing this as much as I do. Sometimes when I'm teaching, I want to say, get out of the way. I want to do it. Let me do it. Okay. It looks close enough to being a pen. Nah, I gotta get rid of that hump there. I can't live with that hump. Come on, you. All right, that'll do. So we're going to move on to sanding now. Sometimes if your mandrel's a little bent, you're going to get a little lump. I can feel this. It's pretty smooth. This one's a little rough on the end, but it's even. This one is not even. Good for you. So you want to take that down by hand before you start sanding the entire body. Which order are these in? I'm a very organized person. I have all my sandpaper organized in little strips ready to go. This one won't behave. All in order. That's a 150. I'm not using it. That's a 180. I'll go for 240 when I'm taking care of this little issue here. You sand one direction from your bushing over that high area. And it generally brings it down pretty quickly. Now this one's all the way around, so I'm just going to do all the way around. All right, and these don't need sanding. There are two things I use when I'm sanding: a flat piece of wood and a piece of yoga mat. And just to save time, I'm going to start with 320. It's fairly smooth. I generally start off only the first time around with the stick. And what the stick does, sanding, I'll sand about 1,200, 1,300. Sometimes higher, depending on the wood. Come on. The stick allows me to see where my high spots are. Unfortunately, with this light piece of wood, you can't see it. It'll be scratching the high spots before it gets down to the low spots. So the idea is to use this stick until it's all even all the way around. If you don't like the shape of something, you can back off to a coarser grit and fine-tune your shape. This one has problems. I should have started with 240, but... Oh, and if my numbers are off, it's because I've got sandpaper that was made in Europe. It's a different system. It's the P system. Anybody knows what that is? It's just the way it's graded. Okay, so once you've